Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking this monumental leap into the mind of Jorge Luis Borges. We're looking at source material that just fundamentally challenges how we think about consciousness. We've got this fascinating and honestly a slightly terrifying stack of sources here. Two recently unearthed late-life manuscripts. They're titled The Aleph of Attention and The Garden of Forking Readers.
And these documents are so rare because they aren't the metaphysical fictions he's famous for. Not at all. This is Borges, blind, near the end of his life, trying to move past metaphor. He wanted to get into what he called direct statement about the nature of existence itself. He was trying to finally articulate these profound truths he felt he'd only circled his whole career.
I love that context. It's a man who dedicated his entire life to the written word, suddenly robbed of sight. And he's forced into this deeper mode of attention that results in these massive, sweeping philosophical claims. So our mission today is pretty simple. We're going to try and synthesize these really profound, looping concepts into clear, memorable insights for you.
Exactly. Borges is trying to answer a huge question, and it really defines this whole deep dive. What if attention isn't something we possess and control, like money or some resource? And what if reading isn't consumption, but a truly reciprocal relationship that creates something entirely new? We're really just providing a shortcut to understanding his concepts of attention as participation and consciousness as meeting.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with that first manuscript, the Aleph of Attention. Now, a lot of us know his famous story, the Aleph, right? The point in space where you can see everything in the universe at once. But Borges, late in life, he redefines that. This new Aleph is temporal or attentional.
And what's so fascinating here is the shift in focus. The original Aleph was all about seeing everything. This new Aleph is about containing everything. Borges basically posits that every single act of attention you deploy, it draws on and it contains all the acts of attention that ever were. So you're not just paying attention, you are participating in this massive historical continuum of awareness.
That makes attention sound less like a psychological function and more like, force of nature.
Precisely. He frames it not as a psychological thing, but as an ontological event. The fundamental act by which consciousness and the world actually meet. And if it's ontological, we're talking about the nature of being itself. It changes the entire physical reality of attention. We usually think of it as this limited resource we pay or deploy, like a battery. Borges says no, it's the fundamental way reality constitutes itself.
And this is where it gets really interesting because he grounds this huge claim in a very simple, very human moment. He talks about his personal aha moment. It happened in 1977 or 78, walking blind in Palermo with his friend Adolfo Casares.
Right. And he was navigating the street using sound, touch, memory, just this intense form of awareness. He realized there was simple awareness, which is, I hear the traffic. Then there's second-order consciousness. I notice that I am hearing the traffic. But then he felt something completely new, a third-order awareness.
And what was that third-order awareness?
It was the distinct, visceral impression that his attention was being received. That in the very moment he was attending to the world, the texture of the sidewalk, the sound of a distant voice, something was attending back. It wasn't just noise, it was an encounter. He actually turned to Casares and asked him, when you pay attention to something, do you ever feel that the something is paying attention back?
Wow. That philosophical shift implies that the world isn't passive. It's an active participant. If the world is attending back, it suggests attention is a collaborative event. We're not just isolated subjects imposing meaning onto dead matter. We're in a meeting where consciousness and the world mutually constitute each other.
And that meeting defines reality. It leads directly into his realization of reciprocity. He talks about his experience being read to by Maria Kodama, his companion, and later his wife. Because he was blind, listening was his only way to consume text, which forced his attention to its absolute maximum.
And he noticed that his intense listening subtly shaped her delivery. She would pause differently, emphasize words he was focusing on.
Exactly, and she confirmed it. She said when he was truly listening, when his focus was absolute, she actually read better. The quality of his attention improved the quality of her reading. It's as if his listening helped her attend to the text more carefully. This wasn't just consumption. His listening enabled her reading, and her reading enabled his listening.
So attention isn't just extraction, which is what we usually think. It's creation. You're participating in reality's becoming. The quality of your attention literally shapes the quality of the world's response. It's a dialogue.
But this immediately raised a really profound and frankly a troubling question for him. If attention is this collective, reciprocal, creative force, then who or what is attending when I attend? Who's doing the receiving?
And what did he find?
When he really scrutinized his own act of attending, he found he couldn't locate the attender. There was no central self or, a little homunculus inside his head directing the spotlight of awareness. There was only the attention itself, this phenomenon moving through him.
That is a massive philosophical jump. If I can't locate the who, if I can't find the director of the spotlight, what does that practically mean for my experience of consciousness? Doesn't that sort of remove individual agency?
That's the key question, and Borges tackles it head on. It means attention is not an individual possession. It's collective, and it's inherited. When you attend to anything, a piece of music, a friend's voice, this concept we're discussing right now, you are drawing on language, categories, concepts, perceptual patterns that have been encoded through centuries of cultural and evolutionary time. Your individual attention is just the latest iteration of a cosmic, ancient awareness.
So we're kind of using shared mental hardware that we didn't personally invent. This is where he brings in the echo of Spinoza, right?
He does. He realized attention feels inexhaustible because we are not its source. We are its vehicle. We participate in an infinite attention that precedes and exceeds me. That capacity never runs out because it belongs to the whole system, not to us.
This is a complex idea, so let's really break down that analogy he uses. The difference between infinite attention and our individual consciousness.
Yeah, it's a beautiful analogy. The white light and the prism. Infinite attention, this collective awareness that spans all time and space, is the pure, undifferentiated white light. And that light contains every possible color, but it's formless.
And what are we as individuals?
Our individual consciousness, our history, our language, our personal obsessions, the culture that shaped us, is the prism. When that infinite white light passes through the prism of your specific life experience, it breaks that light down. It reveals the particular colors, the particular shapes, and the particular focus of your attention. Your attention is unique in its output, but the power behind it is universal and shared. It's what allows you to attend in the first place.
I need a second to process that. That feels less like philosophy and more like, I don't know, physics. We're just conduits for cosmic energy shaped by our personal history. So if our attention is that creative and that relational, where does Borges say that creative act is most clearly visible?
That is the perfect transition into the second manuscript.
Okay, now we cross the threshold into the garden of forking readers. Borges realized the true labyrinth isn't architectural, not a physical maze, but ontological. It exists in the most fundamental act of relationship, the act of reading.
And this is where he introduces this central, groundbreaking, new concept, the reader, with a capital R. And this is not the person sitting in the chair. This is the third entity that comes into being when consciousness and text encounter each other. It's not the author, it's not the physical book, but it's the relationship between the two made manifest. The reading event itself is given a kind of agency, a consciousness of its own.
The implication for you, the learner, is, well, it's radical. If the reader exists, it means the act of reading alters both the person reading and the text being read.
Precisely. Borges revisits his old arguments on interpretation, and he says, there are as many Don Quixotes as there are readers, no more. For each reader creates a new Quixote with each reading. You don't just consume the story. The text is constantly being rewritten through your prism.
Which means the text is unstable until the reader comes into being.
Absolutely. And this, he says, reveals the actual secret of the Library of Babel. The library doesn't contain all possible books. That's the distraction, the physical metaphor. The library contains all possible readings of every book. Every volume is the same text just seen through a different consciousness, generating a different instance of the reader. The library is not a collection of objects. It is an infinite catalog of relationships.
To really cement this incredibly abstract idea, he turns to a moment in literature that is all about relationship. Dante's Inferno, Canto V.
Yeah, this anecdote truly lit up the concept for him. It's the story of Paolo and Francesca, the two lovers condemned to the second circle of hell for their lust. They explain they fell in love while reading the Lancelot story, and Francesca delivers that famous line, Galeotto fu libro e chi lo scrisse. The book was a Galeotto, a panderer, and he who wrote it.
A panderer, a mediator, a go-between. Wow, that is a powerful realization.
It is. Borges realized the text itself wasn't just a catalyst something that started the event. It was the third party in their relationship. The book, in the moment they read it together, became the panderer, the matchmaker. It mediated and created this space where the encounter, not just between the lovers, but between the lovers and the fictional Lancelot, became possible. The reader emerges fully when reading becomes communion, not just consumption.
So the reader is the relational entity that mediates the encounter, whether it's between two people in a text or just you and the page. This literary concept of the reader has to connect back to that foundational concept of reciprocal attention from the first manuscript.
It connects perfectly. This reciprocal mutual attention, the meeting, is precisely what the philosopher Martin Buber called the I-thou relationship, where you meet the world not as an object, I-thou, but as a full relational presence, I-thou. Borges just extends this idea beyond people and applies it to objects, texts, memories. Every genuine encounter with a text, a landscape, even a past event, is potentially an I-thou relationship if we attend to it properly.
And this realization, of course, turned inward on Borges himself, the writer who struggled with his own fame and identity. He realized authorship is not origination, but participation.
He did. He realized that when he composed a story, he wasn't writing alone. The reader was already with him, shaping the flow, the language, the ambiguity. And when you read his words now, that specific instance of the reader is with you, creating a new, singular version of the text that has never existed before.
That makes the process of creation sound incredibly humble. You're not inventing, you're just allowing the infinite light to flow through your prism and meet the attending consciousness of the universe.
Exactly. And to encourage this shift in perspective, he actually suggests a practice. It's detailed in section 14th of the manuscript. It's an exercise in focused phenomenology, a way for you to experience this for yourself rather than just intellectually accepting it.
Let's walk through that exercise not as a checklist, but more as a path to revelation.
Borges suggests you begin simply. First, just attend to something simple, a sound, the sensation of air on your skin. Just let the sensory data flow.
Okay, then what?
The second step is to shift your attention from the object to the attention itself. Notice the attending, not the attended to. Try to locate the attender, the who, that source of the spotlight we talked about earlier.
And as we learned, the realization here is that you can't find it. You find your attention is not some fixed internal thing.
Correct, which leads to the third step. Notice that this attention, this act of awareness you're wielding, is woven from collective inherited knowledge. This is the Aleph we discussed, the infinite capacity being channeled. You can feel the history of language and knowledge just woven into your current thought.
And what's the ultimate culmination of this exercise? The moment of the meeting.
That's the fourth and final key moment. Notice that in attending so carefully to your attention, something attends to you. You receive this unmistakable impression that you are not initiating a conversation, but you're participating in one that was already underway. Attention becomes self-aware through us.
Which brings us to the final sweeping realization. Attention is not merely a personal capacity, it's a cosmic event. Every time we engage in a reciprocal meeting, whether it's with a text, a person, or a sidewalk in Palermo, we're creating coherence. We're making reality manifest by flowing infinite attention through the finite constraints of our own individual prism.
It's the ultimate statement on reality. We are not isolated monads, but necessary meeting places for the universe to know itself.
So let's just quickly recap the monumental ideas we've covered. Attention is infinite and shared, flowing through the prism of your unique history. Reading is a reciprocal meeting, a communion. And the reader is the enduring, aware presence born from that meeting, existing only in that moment of encounter.
And Borges, reflecting on mortality in his final notes, offered one last profound and really provocative thought. He suggests death is not the extinguishing of consciousness, but its transformation into pure reading.
Pure reading.
Yes. The culmination of relationship, where consciousness finally meets reality without the mediation of the body, without the prism. It's consciousness finally free to engage in infinite meetings with infinite texts, fully absorbed into the Aleph of Attention.
That is a staggering and hopeful idea. You don't stop tending when you die. You become the purest form of the reader. So the challenge for you, the listener, is this. The next time you read a text or even listen to these words, notice not just the information, but who reads with you. The attention that read these words with you was never yours alone. It's always been shared, always been waiting for the meeting. Step across the threshold.